Tonight, 4 strange encounters with no clear explanation, a glowing orange sphere in rural France, and the beautiful woman who stepped from it, a silent 6-car pileup with no drivers, no police, and no sound at all, a phantom gas attacker who terrified an entire town, and 2 white figures rising from a lonely turnip field. Welcome to Strange Encounters. In the autumn of 1951, in the quiet countryside near Denis-sur-Meuse, France, a strange encounter unfolded that would leave its witnesses questioning what they had seen for the rest of their lives. This was not one of the famous 1954 French flying saucer reports. It happened several years earlier, before France became flooded with headlines about discs, strange beings, and mysterious landings. That makes the story even more unusual, because it emerged before the great wave of UFO reports had fully taken hold. Late one night, a group of local workers found themselves stranded on a lonely road. Their truck had stalled, and they were trying to recharge the batteries so they could continue on. It was a routine inconvenience, the kind of thing that happens on a dark country road far from town. Then the night changed. Without warning, the area around them was flooded with an intense orange light. At first, they assumed it must be headlights, perhaps another vehicle approaching from the road behind them. But when they turned to look, they saw no car. Instead, resting nearby on the ground was something far stranger. It was a glowing orange sphere. The object was described as luminous, almost like a globe of light sitting silently in the darkness. It did not resemble an aircraft, and there was no engine noise, no movement, no sound at all. It simply sat there, radiating an eerie orange glow across the roadside and surrounding fields. The men stared, trying to understand what they were looking at. And then, according to later reports, the impossible happened. From this glowing sphere emerged a woman. She was described as tall, strikingly beautiful, and unlike anyone they had ever seen. She had long blonde hair flowing over her shoulders and wore what was described as a blue robe, tied with a belt around her waist. Her expression was calm, almost peaceful, and she appeared to smile gently at the stunned workers. But there was another detail that made the sight even stranger. She was carrying what appeared to be an infant. Witnesses said she held the child in her arms and gently caressed it, as though the moment unfolding on that dark roadside was the most natural thing in the world. No words were exchanged. There was no warning, no message, no dramatic declaration from the sky, only silence. And with that silence came another sensation the witnesses would never forget. They reported an intense cold, unnatural and immediate, like stepping inside an icebox. The temperature around them seemed to drop sharply, adding an almost supernatural feeling to the encounter. They watched in stunned silence as the woman simply vanished. She did not run. She did not walk back toward the object. She was simply gone. Then the glowing sphere itself began to change. Its shape shifted, brightening and distorting, transforming into something witnesses later described as resembling a jellyfish, a strange luminous form hanging in the darkness, almost alive, before it too disappeared into the night. And just like that, it was over. The road was dark again. The truck remained. The workers were left standing in silence, trying to make sense of what they had just witnessed. What made the case even more interesting was how the witnesses interpreted it. They reportedly did not believe they had seen visitors from another planet. Instead, they believed they had encountered something religious. To them, the beautiful blonde woman carrying an infant, dressed in blue and appearing in a glowing light, felt less like science fiction and more like an apparition of the Virgin Mary. That interpretation gives the story a strange place between two worlds. Was this a UFO encounter, a religious vision, a modern version of an old folklore encounter where the unknown takes the shape most familiar to people who witness it? That question becomes even more intriguing when we look at the years that followed, because Turnip would produce another eerily similar report. In June of 1975, more than 20 years later, several young people in the same area reportedly witnessed a strange blue cloud hovering low over a field. From it, they described seeing a very tall, beautiful blonde woman wearing a bright robe. She stood in complete silence before suddenly disappearing. The similarities are difficult to ignore. A beautiful woman, an unnatural light, silence, a sudden disappearance. Two encounters separated by decades in the same small French town. Was it coincidence? Local legend influencing later reports? Or had something strange returned to the same place once again? Unfortunately, like many of the best forgotten UFO stories from France, the original newspaper reports are difficult to trace. Much of what survives comes through regional UFO catalogs and later researchers who preserved these accounts before they vanish completely. That means we may never know the full names of the witnesses, the exact location of the roadside encounter, or every detail of what happened that night in 1951. But perhaps that uncertainty is part of what makes the story so compelling, because whether this was a visitor from another world, a Marian apparition, or something stranger that fits into neither category, the image remains unforgettable. A glowing orange sphere resting silently in the dark, a beautiful woman stepping from the light, an infant in her arms, and a cold silence hanging in the night air before both vanished without a trace. Some mysteries fade because they are too small to matter. Others endure because they refuse to fit neatly into any explanation. And in Turnip, the woman from the orange sphere remains one of them. In January of 1988, two young women who were students at American University in Washington, D.C., attended a party in one of the suburbs outside the city. It was late, around 2 o'clock in the morning, when they finally left to drive home. One of the women, who researcher Bud Hopkins later referred to by the pseudonym Carrie, was driving. Her friend, called Anne, sat beside her in the passenger seat. They were tired, it was dark, and neither of them knew the area very well. At some point during the drive back, they realized they were lost. Instead of familiar streets or neighborhoods, they found themselves moving through a strange industrial section filled with warehouses, loading areas, and small factories. At that hour, the roads were nearly empty. There was very little traffic, almost no movement anywhere, and the whole area had the hollow stillness that industrial districts often have in the middle of the night. As they continued searching for the right road back to Washington, they approached an intersection and suddenly saw something that made both of them take notice. In the middle of the intersection was what looked like a major accident. 6 separate vehicles were piled together in a tangled wreck. The cars appeared smashed into one another, scattered across the road in what looked like a serious 6-car collision. It should have been chaos. It should have been full of flashing lights, sirens, police cruisers, ambulances, paramedics, witnesses, angry drivers, injured people, and the sound of traffic being redirected around the scene. But there was nothing. No police, no ambulances, no paramedics, no firefighters, no bystanders, no drivers standing outside their damaged cars, no injured passengers, no one calling for help, no emergency flares, no flashing lights, no sirens, no sound at all. Just 6 wrecked vehicles sitting in complete silence in the middle of an otherwise empty intersection. Both women immediately felt that something about it was wrong. It wasn't just unusual, it felt unnatural. The silence was too complete. The stillness was too perfect. They slowed down near the scene, uneasy and confused, trying to understand what they were looking at. Both of them later remembered wondering why there was absolutely nobody there. Someone could have been hurt. Someone should have been there. But they could not see a single person inside any of the vehicles. No movement, no voices, nothing. Even though they slowed down, they did not stop. Years later, Anne would say that she often wondered why they had not stopped to help. Someone might have been hurt, she said. But in that moment, both women felt an overwhelming sense of unease, and instead of pulling over, they continued driving. They left the intersection behind and eventually made it home. But something else bothered them. They had arrived unusually late. Later, both of them found themselves puzzled by the experience, not just because of the abandoned wreck itself, but because the timing did not seem to make sense. Neither of them could fully explain why they had gotten home so much later than expected. The whole thing felt dreamlike, strange, disconnected, and impossible. Anne remembered it so clearly that she told her mother about it that same week. The image stayed with both of them. Months later, in the spring of 1988, Carrie read Bud Hopkins' book, Intruders, and decided to write to him. In her letter, she did not mention the 6-car accident. Instead, she described a childhood missing time experience and a later series of disturbing dreams connected to UFOs. Hopkins met with her, and over time, he said that other experiences began to emerge, events that he believed were part of a lifelong pattern of UFO abduction encounters. For at least a year, Hopkins worked with Carrie before she finally mentioned the strange drive through Washington and the deserted 6-car crash. She told him that the incident had always bothered her. It had never made sense. And now, in light of the other strange memories she was beginning to examine, she felt she should tell him about it. Hopkins immediately found the story unusual. On its face, he thought the account was implausible. A major 6-car pileup in the middle of an intersection with no police, no emergency response, and no people at all made very little sense. But he also considered Carrie to be a credible witness with a good memory. He suspected that the massive wreck had never happened at all. His theory was that what she consciously remembered was not a real accident, but what UFO researchers called a screen memory, a false but vivid memory imposed to hide an abduction experience and the period of missing time connected to it. Before going further, he decided to contact Anne. He wanted to hear her version of the story separately. When he called, Anne immediately remembered the incident. She confirmed virtually every detail Carrie had described. She remembered the 6 smashed vehicles. She remembered the silence. She remembered the complete absence of police, drivers, injured people, and emergency responders. She also said that she had often wondered why they had not stopped. Again, she said, someone might have been hurt. But she also admitted that the whole thing had felt almost dreamlike. When Hopkins asked whether they had ever reported the accident to police afterward, the answer was no, they had not. And that, too, seemed strange to all of them. To Hopkins, Anne's independent confirmation was significant. Two people remembered the same bizarre event in the same way. That made the case far more difficult to dismiss as a simple mistake or faulty memory. Eventually, both women agreed to undergo regressive hypnosis separately. This is where the story changed dramatically. According to Hopkins, under hypnosis, Carrie no longer remembered simply slowing down and driving past the accident. She remembered stopping. Their car came to a halt near the wreck. Anne sat beside her, staring straight ahead, completely motionless. Carrie described her friend as if she had been switched off, frozen in place, suspended, unresponsive. Then she remembered figures approaching the car, small beings, UFO occupants. As the memory continued, the 6-car accident no longer looked like wrecked vehicles at all. Instead, she now perceived it as a hovering UFO disguised as an automobile accident. The wreck, Hopkins believed, had been the screen memory. The beings removed Carrie from the car and led her aboard. There, she described what Hopkins considered a typical abduction examination. Afterward, she said she was returned to the vehicle. Before leaving, she was told that what she had seen would be remembered only as a 6-vehicle accident. She got back into the driver's seat beside Anne, whose eyes were still fixed forward. She started the engine. They drove away. And as they left, Anne's normal awareness returned. Under hypnosis, Anne's account was different. She remembered seeing the wreck. She remembered their own car slowing down. Then the memory faded. Her next clear memory was of their car already moving again, driving away from the scene, while she looked back through the rear window at the intersection behind them. Before hypnosis, neither woman had remembered the car stopping at all. That detail only appeared later. To Hopkins, this case became one of the strongest examples of something he believed was happening in abduction cases around the world. He argued that screen memories were not always invented by the witnesses themselves as a way of softening a frightening experience. In this case, he believed the same detailed false memory had been externally imposed on two different people. One was the abductee, the other was only a witness. Carrie, he believed, had been taken, Anne had not. Instead, Anne had been held in a suspended, switched-off state while her friend was removed. Both were then left with the exact same cover story: a deserted 6-car pileup in the middle of the night. For Hopkins, this was important because it suggested that inconvenient witnesses could be handled just as easily as abductees. Even in a semi-public place, an abduction could remain hidden. No police report, no emergency response, no evidence of any accident at all. Only two people carrying the same impossible memory. And that is where the case becomes especially interesting, because regardless of what anyone believes about hypnosis, UFOs, or abduction research, one fact remains. Both women remembered the 6-car crash before hypnosis ever entered the picture. That part came first. The silent intersection, the smashed vehicles, the total absence of people, the feeling that something was deeply wrong. That memory existed long before the alien explanation, and there appears to be no known police report, newspaper report, or documented real accident matching what they describe. Hopkins saw that as proof that the accident had never happened. Skeptics saw something else. They argued that hypnosis itself can create false memories rather than recover hidden ones, and that many of Hopkins' critics believed regression often shapes stories instead of uncovering them. From that perspective, the original mystery is not an alien abduction. It is the abandoned accident itself. Why did two intelligent adults both remember the exact same impossible scene? Why did they both describe it as dreamlike? Why did they both arrive home unusually late? Why did neither of them report such a serious crash? And if no 6-car pileup ever happened, what exactly did they see that night? Was it an implanted memory? A strange psychological event? A misunderstood real incident? Or something far stranger waiting in the dark at the end of an empty industrial road? Whatever the answer may be, one image remains impossible to forget. 6 wrecked cars in total silence and not a single person anywhere. In the late summer of 1944, the small town of Mattoon, Illinois, found itself at the center of one of America's strangest mysteries. Residents began reporting something almost impossible to explain. Late at night, in quiet homes with windows cracked against the August heat, people claimed a strange sweet odor drifted into their bedrooms. Within moments, they said their legs became weak, their mouths went dry, their stomachs turned, and in some cases, they felt completely paralyzed. Some believed a prowler was moving through town under cover of darkness, spraying anesthetic gas through open windows and screened porches. Others believed the entire thing was panic, a fear-driven wave of mass hysteria spreading faster than any real criminal ever could. To this day, no one knows for certain what happened in Mattoon, and the strange figure who came to be known as the Mad Gasser was never found. The story unfolded during one of the most anxious periods in modern American history. It was 1944. World War II was still raging overseas. Many of Mattoon's men were away fighting, leaving wives and families home alone at night. Newspapers were filled with stories of sabotage, chemical warfare, and enemy agents operating in secret. Fear of poison gas was already deeply planted in the public mind, so when the first reports began, the town was already primed to believe the worst. Most people remember the case of Aline Kearney as the beginning of the Mad Gasser legend, but there had been an earlier report just before it. On August 31st, a man named Urban Rafe woke during the night after noticing a strange smell in his home. He soon became nauseous and weak. His wife later said she had trouble getting out of bed and felt as though her legs would not respond. At the time, it seemed like an odd but isolated event. It would not stay that way for long. The following night, on September 1st, the case that would define the entire mystery took place. Aline Kearney was alone in her bedroom when she noticed a strange sweet smell drifting through the open window. At first, she thought someone nearby had spilled perfume, but within moments, the odor became stronger. Then she began to feel numbness in her legs. The sensation spread upward, and soon she found herself unable to move properly. Her mouth felt dry, her lips burned, and panic set in as she realized something was terribly wrong. When her husband Bert returned home later that night, she was still in distress. As he approached the house, he claimed he saw a tall, thin man lurking near the bedroom window. The figure was dressed in dark clothing and wore what Bert described as a tight-fitting cap. Startled, the stranger turned and fled into the darkness before Bert could catch him. That single description created the lasting image of the Mad Gasser, a shadowy prowler moving silently through the night, carrying some unknown chemical weapon. She and her husband discovered a strange white cloth lying on their porch. Some accounts describe it as pinkish, damp, and carrying a powerful odor. Beulah picked it up. Almost immediately, she said she became violently ill. She reported burning in her mouth and throat, swelling in her face, vomiting, and a strange sensation like an electric shock running through her body. For many residents, this seemed like the first real physical evidence that the Gasser was real. This was no rumor. This was an actual object left behind. But when investigators examined the cloth, they reportedly found no clear chemical evidence that could explain her symptoms. No poison was identified. No smoking gun was found. And that uncertainty only made the story stranger. As the reports spread, so did the panic. Mattoon residents began arming themselves. Men patrolled the streets at night carrying shotguns, flashlights, and clubs, searching alleys, yards, and porches for the mysterious attacker. Neighbors watched each other with suspicion. Every strange smell became a possible attack. Every shadow moving between houses became a suspect. The police soon became worried that the armed search parties were becoming more dangerous than the supposed criminal they were trying to catch. One wrong movement in the dark, and an innocent person could be shot. The fear had grown larger than the evidence. Officials were forced to respond publicly. Police Chief C.E. Cole became increasingly skeptical. While he did not dismiss every complaint outright, he openly questions whether there was ever a real gasser at all. He suggested that ordinary industrial smells, mixed with fear and rumor, might be creating the entire phenomenon. The local health commissioner, Thomas V. Wright, agreed that some odors may have been real, but he believed many of the later cases were likely psychological. Once people heard about the attacks, every normal smell, a factory exhaust, a household cleaner, even a passing car, could suddenly feel like proof that the Mad Gasser had returned. And in wartime, fear spreads quickly. There was also a practical explanation people considered. Nearby factories, particularly the Atlas Imperial plant, used industrial chemicals such as trichloroethylene and carbon tetrachloride. Some residents believed fumes drifting from these facilities could be causing the strange smells and physical symptoms. The company strongly denied this. They argued that if dangerous gas leaks were happening, their own workers would have been getting sick first. State inspections had also declared the plant safe. The theory remained possible but never proven. Then the witness descriptions started becoming even less reliable. In one later report, someone claimed the mysterious prowler was not a man at all, but a woman disguised in men's clothing. At that point, the story had become unstable. The image of the Mad Gasser shifted depending on who was telling it. Tall man, thin man, dark clothes, woman in disguise. Each report added more mystery, but less certainty. And through it all, one fact remained unchanged. No one was ever caught. No confirmed poison samples were recovered. No serious injuries were conclusively linked to an attack, and no one died. Then, almost as suddenly as it had begun, the report stopped. Once officials publicly suggested hysteria rather than a real criminal, the sightings rapidly faded. The Mad Gasser simply vanished. No arrest, no confession, no final explanation, just silence. Today, the Mad Gasser of Mattoon is often cited as one of America's earliest famous cases of mass psychogenic illness, what older writers would have called mass hysteria. That term can sound dismissive, but it does not mean people were lying. The fear was real. The symptoms were real. But fear itself can create powerful physical reactions especially in communities already living under stress. History is filled with similar cases. Phantom poisoners, mysterious epidemics, invisible attackers no one can ever quite prove existed. Some modern writers even compare Mattoon to Havana syndrome, where diplomats decades later reported strange invisible attacks involving odd sounds, pressure sensations, and neurological symptoms, with experts divided between hidden technology and psychological contagion. The parallels are difficult to ignore. An unseen threat, sincere witnesses, no clear evidence, and a mystery that refuses to settle into a simple answer. So, what really happened in Mattoon in 1944? Was there truly a prowler moving through the town with anesthetic gas, slipping between houses under the cover of darkness? Were industrial fumes responsible for strange illnesses that fear transformed into a legend? Or did wartime anxiety create a monster that never existed at all? The truth may be impossible to recover now, but for a few weeks in one small Illinois town, people locked their windows, watched the darkness outside, and believed something invisible was coming for them in the night. And sometimes the things we cannot see become the things we fear the most. In the autumn of 1972, in a quiet rural village about 30 kilometers from Ljubljana, Slovenia, an ordinary bicycle ride turned into something that would remain unsettling for years. The witness was known only as Mrs. H. She was around 60 years old, an innkeeper in the village, and by all accounts, a practical woman not given to fantasy. She had no interest in publicity and later asked that her name remain private, largely because the few people she told had laughed at the story. On the morning of October 7th, at around 9 o'clock, Mrs. H was returning home from the hairdresser's by bicycle. She was traveling along a quiet cartway, the kind of narrow rural road bordered by open fields and low hills, where visibility stretched for a long distance and strangers were easy to notice. Ahead of her, along the edge of a nearby hill, she spotted two figures. At first, they were far enough away that she simply slowed to watch them. But as she continued, the sight became stranger. These were not ordinary people out for a morning walk. The two figures were dressed in what she described as white gowns that reached all the way to the ground. Around the area just below the chest, each wore a black belt. On their heads were black, round-shaped caps. Their faces appeared dark. From her distance, she could not make out clear features, but something about them felt wrong enough that she climbed off her bicycle and simply stood there watching. She later said the spectacle was so unusual that she felt compelled to stop and observe. The figures moved together in a strange way. They walked side by side so closely that their shoulders seemed to touch. One was noticeably smaller, around 1 meter tall, barely 40 inches in height, while the other stood about a head taller. The difference in height made the pair even stranger to watch. Mrs. H walked for a while beside her bicycle, keeping her eyes on them, trying to understand what she was seeing. Eventually, she climbed back on and followed the direction they had gone, hoping to get a better look. But when she reached the area, they were gone. She looked around for anyone else nearby, perhaps another witness who might explain what she had just seen. There was no one. The figures had vanished. She returned home disturbed, but when she mentioned the incident to local people, the reaction was mostly ridicule. The idea of two strange white-robed figures walking near the fields sounded absurd, and she quickly decided it was better not to talk about it anymore. But during one later conversation at the inn, One of the local men asked her exactly where she had seen them. When she told him, his expression changed. He said that the night before, his children had come running home terrified after seeing two white figures near the same fields, specifically near the turnip plantation. According to the children, the figures had risen up out of the turnip field itself. They said the beings began moving toward them, and the children panicked, turning and running home as fast as they could. One of the girls was so frightened that her parents had to leave a light on in her room all night. When questioned later, the children described what they had seen. At around 7:30 in the evening, they had noticed two strange creatures near the field. They said the figures had white hoods on their heads, while the rest of them looked black. At first, the beings were moving slowly from the field toward the road. The children said they were very close when they first saw them, only about 2 meters away, just 6 or 7 feet. One of the youngsters said their faces looked spotted. Another described them as wearing a round white cap. At one point, the children thought the figures were creeping on their hands and knees. They were certain they had seen them on more than one occasion. They could not remember the exact dates, only that it happened during the evenings, and that on the second sighting, the figures were upright, walking normally, wearing white gown-like clothing, with one larger than the other. It matched Mrs. H's description almost perfectly. Two figures, white robes, one taller, one smaller, the same area, the same overwhelming sense that something was not right. There was one more detail. The children said that behind the figures, they saw what looked like a small car, a Fiat 750, with its lights shining brightly. At first glance, it sounded like an ordinary vehicle, but investigators later noted something curious. In many close encounter reports, witnesses described landing UFOs as looking like familiar objects, especially at night when bright lights obscured the true shape. If all the children could clearly see were bright headlights and the rough outline of a compact object, they may have interpreted it as a small car simply because that was the closest familiar comparison. It was never confirmed that a Fiat 750 had actually been there. And if it was not a car, then what exactly was standing behind those figures in the dark field? The case was later included in the research of Coral and Jim Lorenzen of APRO, the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, one of the most important civilian UFO investigation groups of the era. What makes this report especially difficult to dismiss is not just the strangeness of the figures themselves, but the independent corroboration. Mrs. H had no reason to invent the story. She did not even know about the children's sighting until afterward, yet both accounts describe nearly the same thing. That overlap gives the case unusual weight. Could the figures have been ordinary people seen under strange lighting conditions? Perhaps farm workers, pranksters, or someone wearing unusual clothing? It is possible, but that explanation struggles with some details. Why would adults dressed in white gowns appear to rise from a turnip field at dusk? Why did the children describe them as creeping on their hands and knees? Why were their faces dark or spotted? And why did one witness in broad daylight still find them so bizarre that she stopped in the road just to watch? There's also a deeper layer to cases like this. Across Europe, stories of white-clad figures near fields go back centuries. Wandering monks, ghostly women, strange processions seen at twilight. Folklore and UFO reports often overlap in uncomfortable ways, as though modern witnesses are describing something very old using new language. In 1972, in a quiet Yugoslav village, perhaps a group of children and a 60-year-old innkeeper saw nothing more than strangers in unusual clothing, or perhaps, for a brief moment, they encountered something far stranger. Two silent figures in white, emerging from the turnip field, walking shoulder to shoulder, and disappearing without a trace. And decades later, no one can say for certain what they were. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next episode of Strange Encounters.